All right. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمد ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Folks, brothers and sisters watching online, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Abdurrahman Bashir, and for those of you who do not know, I serve as the Imam, or the religious director, if you will, of the Islamic Association of Allen. And if you're joining us this evening, we are here. We have put together an event to help our community, our families, to help us comfort each other and give each other, be there for each other in the form of solace and peace in the aftermath of the tragic event that hit so very close to home. I have been a part of the Allen community and the Allen family for starting my 5th year now, and I am going to be, along with my colleague Mufti Nauman, we are going to be facilitating a conversation. For those of you who are joining us online, please don't hesitate to post your questions or post your concerns if you're joining via Zoom into the chat room, or if you are joining us on YouTube and Facebook in the comment section. Today, I am going to be welcoming Sister Hina Khan and Sister Abida Minhas, who are family friends, first of all, and also members of our Allen family and community, and who are also certified licensed mental health professionals in their respective fields and in their respective areas of expertise. I'm also going to be joined alongside with Mufti Nauman, who serves as the educational director and resident scholar of the Islamic Association of Allen. The purpose of us requesting the presence of Sister Hina Khan and Sister Abida is to help our community navigate, navigate through this tragic situation. And the Prophet ﷺ has stated in a hadith that the example of the ummah, and when we talk about ummah, that means the greater family, the greater family in faith. The example of the ummah is the example of a body. And when one limb of that body is afflicted, when one limb or any area of that body is affected or sees pain, it is felt by the rest of the body. Bis-sahri wal-humma, the wording that the Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon him, used is by restlessness and a fever. Whenever we experience a toe stub or any kind of pain, whether it be even something as slight or minor as a paper cut, we don't leave that finger alone to suffer. The other hand immediately reacts in granting that fingertip comfort. A wrinkle forms on our forehead. We may react vocally by saying, and then our entire body goes into motion seeking the aid of a Band-Aid or an ointment or whatever it is that is needed to help facilitate the healing process. Does the pain go away immediately? No, it does not. But the process of healing starts. So in the aftermath of what has happened in our community, us as a family, as the Allen family, as the Allen community, we would like to, provide an outlet, to our audience to start facilitating the healing process. So I am joined by Sister Hina Khan, and inshallah, I'm gonna pass over the microphone to her. And please keep in mind that as she speaks, if there's anything that any question, any concern, anything that you personally would like addressed, your personal issue, your personal concern in how to deal with this situation, please feel free to reach out.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today for this Al Masjid event. That's really important right now, and I'm so grateful for our communities to be able to. There's so many events that our communities are putting out to be able to help all of us collectively heal. This has definitely been a very stressful week for everyone, and I want to take a moment to really normalize all the different feelings everyone is having about this. And there's a lot of mixed feelings. You know, one moment you might feel one feeling, and the next moment you might feel a completely different feeling. And that's completely okay. This is a very traumatic, tragic incident. And naturally, we are having a very human reaction to it. So I want to really normalize what we're all experiencing. And I want to point out the power of community and the power of collective healing, right? We are social beings. As much as we might be introverted, we still do seek social connections and we heal through relationships. And so I want to emphasize the importance of collective healing. And this is one of the reasons why we're doing all these different events for the community, to bring the community together, to encourage you to get your communities together in order to collectively heal, because this is exactly what we need in order to start this healing process, is each other. I think what Imam Bashir just shared about the body's physiological response to a situation like this, that's so true in so many ways. We have all kinds of visceral reactions in our bodies. When we hear news like this, or when we experience something like this, we might have physiological reactions like our heart's racing. We're not able to focus. We aren't able to make decisions. We're not able to do things maybe we could have done even last week. Maybe those things are far harder today than they were last week. And that also is very normal. Our body is, in a way, doing things to compensate for the experience that we're having, and it's learning to cope and manage that. And so if you're experiencing this lack of focus, stress, inability to make decisions, not able to sleep well, not able to get sound sleep, not feeling like you want to eat anything, or feeling really numb about this, these are all, again, bodily physiological reactions that are very normal in a situation like this. I guess I want to really bring in, since we're here at the Al Masjid, I'd really like to hear more about some of the spiritual pieces. Maybe we can hear kind of like what Imam Bashir shared about how our bodies react. I'd love to hear more spiritual pieces, because I know this will also help us heal in addition to the psychological pieces.
Jazakallah khair for sharing those really important words of reflection, for us to really look over. I think right now we are also being joined by, you can also come sit here, inshallah. So for those that are tuning in, we do often get a chance to really speak on different topics. We get a chance, throughout the year to cover different arenas and different elements, pertaining to our life. And very seldom do we get a chance to cover this really, really integral topic. And that's why we have the likes of who we have in our presence today, so that we can. The Prophet ﷺ told us, this is an understood concept in our deen, that if someone doesn't know something, they go to the people that are well versed in that field, those that understand the certain patterns and the certain elements pertaining to that field. And so I did want to pass this on, and inshallah we can get a few words from Sister Abida just on the different dilemmas that we face. I think one of the things that I would love to hear from y'all as well, as kind of this role that I have as the youth director and just kind of interacting with the different children and throughout the community, it's just this concept of being able to trust. A lot of times it's like, okay, if I see, excuse me, if I see that person speaking to my parent, I don't know if I necessarily have that avenue to trust anymore, because that might just trickle onto my parent. If I share something, it might just make its way into my household where I was just already scared to share it with to begin with. And so what are y'all's advices for people like us to be able to navigate these waters, especially, the platform that we have?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I apologize. I had sessions kind of late tonight, so I was running a little behind to get started tonight. But Mufti Wasim, thank you for having us tonight as MAPS, and thank you for the shared experiences that you're describing for the community. I think for all of us, we're still in the process of grieving and going through that shock and understanding exactly what's taking place in our community. I think, mashallah, your role is so vital because you're working with the development of somebody's personality. And, you're part of their life as a youth director. What really might shape a lot of things that they may be experiencing is that they're not able to share with even their close loved ones, like friends or peers or even family members or parents. So, one thing, as you asked, what as a community can we do, I think essentially is what you're asking. I think giving supportive spaces to our youth is so important. And I think coming from cultural experiences at times, we're not able to provide that. Just active listening, I know it's such a small tool, but can it be so powerful for a youth that doesn't feel that they have a space to be heard or validated. So one thing that I would encourage everyone as we're healing is to give some of our youth, every one of our youth actually a space to be validated and listened to. Because you may be that person that may be changing their life in a way that nobody's able to at that point. So that would be one of the biggest tool I would share tonight as essentially a gem. Even if it's a small, what I tell people is pay attention to your intuitions, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a mind that nafs for a reason. And I think, you coming from the spiritual perspective, I'm sure you can share your gems on how we can pay attention to those. But for me, clinically, intuition, that feeling that something's not right can be really, really powerful. So I think when we listen to somebody and something doesn't set with us, do your own work to be able to research and figure out what can I do to help that person. Ask more questions, ask more open-ended dialogue, and that could really enrich that experience, with that interaction and communication building. Jazakallah.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add, when it comes to trust, we in our practices, the kids that we see, the teens that we see, their parents bring them. So the first point of contact is the parent. And so they go in there knowing you have access to my parent before you have access to me. And that can be a barrier at times. That can be a challenge. Teens do resist sometimes in therapy, but what it boils down to, and at least what I have found success in, is just, at least initially, just focusing on building relationship. Like I said earlier, relationships heal. And if we can focus on just building solid relationships with the youth we have, which I feel like our youth groups and our programming at our masjid, they do a great job of that, connecting with youth. And that's so key, so important. And we're connecting with them in a way that's very, very unique, in a very unique setting. And so I can't emphasize that enough, that continue to do that great work of just relationship building with each and every kid, and seeing the uniqueness in every kid that you work with is just gold.
Jazakallah khair for really expanding on that topic, and especially that really important and kind of consistent theme that a lot of people face. I think I also want to kind of continue picking y'all's brain. So now, say I am a youth growing up here in Allen, Texas, or just around, and um, I have gone and I've tried, the avenue of speaking to my parents, and I just feel like it's this consistent dead end, and I'm meeting like all around and surrounding me is just this negativity, and whether that just be in my interpersonal relationships with family or friends or colleagues at school, or whether it just be societal or communal with the things that are kind of going around and just going on. And so growing up a lot of times, and especially in this day and age, it's just kind of this dilemma of just even self-identity. And so what are kind of some steps when someone's now kind of identified, and I've heard when you feel there's something wrong, that's a really big step. That's a really big calling, right? That you, just in and of yourself, you feel that there's something off. But someone feels that, but at the same time, they haven't really necessarily been finding the avenues, and especially the people closest to them. What is kind of y'all's advice on how they would be able to proceed forward with something like that?
That's such a good question. I think Mufti, I would definitely say that I think when somebody doesn't feel validated, that could be even more isolating. So as we're talking about, the one thing that you can do for your youth is to validate them. When they keep crying out for help, if they keep asking for help, and then we're still not validating it, that could be very isolating. I would then say that if somebody is in a very hopeless situation, that, depending on who their caregiver is, especially their parents, they might start seeing a decline, in their behavior. And I'm sure, Hannah, you can attest to that with the youth that you work with. When people call in for help, they don't call for preventative or maintenance. They don't call us because things are going well in the family system. They call us because something has been really shifted from the A to the Z spectrum, that the things have really, really gone from a very dark point for the family system. So a lot of times, as you're saying, that if that person is not able to get help, there are obviously hotlines. There's preventative hotlines that people can reach out to. If they don't have somebody that can connect with our family systems, there's, federal hotlines, there's local hotlines, there's somebody that you can connect with. Oftentimes the people that are professionals, clinicians on those hotlines are on a track of helping somebody find release somewhere. So finding them and connecting them to resources or professionals like Hannah and myself, or people in the community that they can trust. So oftentimes, if you feel very hopeless as a youth, there are things you can connect with. I know for the youth, especially in 2021, social media is a big outlet. So a lot of times guide them to, healthy social media outlets, or even places they can go and reach out for that help if they're not feeling it in their family system or their family or friend circles. And obviously, if the challenge keeps going, hopefully, if, inshallah, with good parenting skills, you can provide that help. If your child is released, all this energy, you're seeing a decline in them, then definitely get them professional help. But for the youth that's going through it, I definitely say seek out help, whether it's on a hotline, whether it's through a friend, whether it's somebody you trust, like a teacher, or, as you play a frontline vital role, a youth director, your imams, everybody. I mean, we're a community and we want to help our youth and, ummah grow and be healthy and more productive, inshallah.
And I just wanted to add that there are school staff, like school counselors, that are accessible as well, that students can contact, while they're in school, or even if they're doing the at-home learning program, there are still ways to connect to your school counselor. And so there are avenues, and yes, in those moments, it feels like there are none, and it probably feels like where are they? I can't find them, or they feel like they're being let down. But we definitely want to encourage you to continue to reach out to these adults, the teachers, the school counselors, the youth directors, trusted adults, and you might be surprised the adults you can actually trust. And so really encouraging, trying these several different avenues. And if you feel like you can't find an avenue, even just stating that to somebody, like, I don't know where else to go.
Thank you so much for those really beautiful answers. And so, for those that have just kind of trickled in and just joined in into the program, and those that perhaps are tuning in as well, we're facilitating a conversation here. So, if there's any questions that y'all may have, because it's such a important dialogue, and there's so many parameters to it as well, right? It's not just, oh, it's my child and that's about it. It's, what am I doing as a parent? What am I doing as a brother, a sister, a sibling? There's so many elements involved. And so I think I want to also open up to our crowd that's online, those that are here joining us as well. What are some personal questions that you may have for our panelists of experts here? And we can get those addressed, inshallah. Yes.
Just from a parent perspective, when your child is wronging you for something, how do you draw that line between they just having an attitude, they're just being a child, and I mean, it's fine, and they're just not happy, whatever it was. Where do you draw that line where, that's just an attitude versus there's something going on?
Just to repeat the question for our audience online before I pass it on. As a parent, how can you decipher and make the difference, and where is that line drawn between someone just having perhaps a bad day, or there's actually something really going wrong and a serious problem at hand? So what is the difference, and how can one make that differentiation?
Thank you. That's a really good question, really important one, probably very common for many parents. I think one thing to really, really pay attention to is how frequently, how consistently this is happening, and how intense the reactions are. And is there a pattern to the reactions? So I think what often happens is when we discipline our kids, we really focus on the behavior. They did this, they shouldn't do this, so this is the consequence for doing this. And it ends there, right? If we look past the behavior, because all behavior is purposeful. There is a reason why, even that intense reaction, there's a reason. Maybe that child is really grieving what they thought they could have, really upset with what they thought they could achieve or get to or go to. And so really looking past the behavior and addressing that underlying feeling of the upset, like where is this coming from? And understanding that, and if we pay attention to that, we'll start to see patterns. We'll start to see the consistency of this, the frequency of this. And of course, if it's not if it's happening more often than not, if it's happening more days than not, and there's this pattern that's developing, then we know that we're looking at something that's getting a little bit more problematic. But I don't ever want to say that, wait till it gets problematic, right? Because I think we tend to do that naturally. We're like, oh, I think it'll be okay. I think this will, fade away, or this will get better eventually. It doesn't hurt to just talk to a professional, to say, hey, this is happening. What do you think? Do you think that this is something I need to, because if we address issues early on, we're able to get, help these kids are able to get help sooner than later, and it requires less time and resources then to heal or to process or overcome what they're going through. Versus if we wait till we've spiraled, it takes longer time, more resources to be able to bounce back. And so I feel like that's paying attention to these things can help us find patterns and consistencies.
Oh, no. Oh, thanks. All right. I think we had a little techie issue. Thank you, Hina. I think Hina, to make Hina's point, just expand on it very briefly. I think Hina summed it up really well. But the only thing I would add is, we as a community, as a society, are naturally worried about the worst case scenario. So when you start looking at, as Hina said, paying attention to brief episodes, it's probably not a big deal. But if your child is having a bad attitude or explosive episodes pretty consistently, then chances are there is something underlying going on. And it may be taken a look at. It's no different than if somebody's had, low sugars for a few days because they haven't eaten or fasted. And if that pattern keeps continuing after you've reinforced the behavior, done some positive, reinforcement, and they still have this continual attitude, then it may be worthwhile to kind of dig a little deeper and figure out, is it me as a parenting in the way that I'm parenting, or is it my child and they're not responding to the type of parenting, or something else going on with them and I need to figure out that for them. So professional tools help, community support helps. Of course, as a parent, your job is a lot more difficult because you're doing all the frontline work, you're living with them, you're seeing them every day and day out. So it might be helpful to sit down, have a conversation like, can I do something for you? Is there something going on? There's an age group, and I'm sure you can add more than I can, but developmentally, most adolescents are not going to be able to speak to their parents directly. I mean, they're forming their own identities, their own ideas, their own thoughts. It happens universally. It happens in all cultures across the board. But we as parents, as consistently as we can parent that child, we can really build secure relationships for that child and for their identity. I think it's our job as a parent is really hard. Everybody, I think, universally talks about how difficult it is to parent a teenager, and mostly because the teenagers themselves are going through so much. And the research on brain studies are that the human brain is not even fully formed until 25. So you're expecting a 15-year-old to react like, an 18-year-old, or 15-year-old to be responsible like a 28-year-old, and it's not possible. Their brain is not designed to have that abstract thinking the way we are able to as adults. So, being mindful and empathetic that my child may not understand what I'm looking for. So maybe I have to explain to them why I'm coming from that place. So that would be my add-on.
Great question. And so for our audience online, the question was, so for children and for young adults, of course there's avenues, right? And you could very much so be able to approach your parent. But what if your parent is someone who has a hard time accepting this reality, or someone accepting that therapy is a necessary avenue? So what is something that could be advised to those parents, and an avenue that they can resort to as well?
I think what you're asking, and that's a really, really important point to bring up, because we see it so often, where we see kids hurting, kids needing support, and there are certain barriers in place. And so I think what you're asking is, what can the Masajid communities do in order to help or support these parents kind of change their perspective, their understanding of what it means to get therapy, what does it mean to get support, and how this could help their child. And I don't know the answer to that, but I guess we can think about a possible support system within the masajid that can provide that avenue for parents to get support and direct them there. And so I think that's a great idea to expand on, to think about with administration, to find out how we can provide. And we'd love feedback if there are ideas you have that you think would help you as a parent, or other parents that that could benefit. I think we can start with that. But I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is, I guess I'll get defensive and probably send it to Imam Bashir and see if he can help and delegate a resistant parent. But, for a lot of times we need community support. For the work that Hina and I do, and the hours I think we've put in the pandemic, that I think, for all of us, and I truly believe this, like, it takes a village and a tribe to raise not just adults, but children in the community. And so sometimes we have to acclimate to what we have. So our culture, especially, I've talked about this pretty often in the last couple of days, is I was not parented the way that I'm parenting my children. And I have to be a conscious parent and so mindful. And I talk to my friends and family about this, even on a personal level, that I have to change the way that I was parented. I can't be the reactive parents that I had, growing up, but that was the norm. We couldn't talk back to our parents. We could, essentially, I remember getting looks from my mom, and that was scary enough. But, our community and the kids, like, you can sit down and have dialogues with them, but they connect on a very emotional level. And I think we have to be aware of the experiences they're coming from, and their experiences aren't like ours. So with parenting, that's the most, the most challenge that I think I often see is getting them to understand that your child's hurting and they're coming from a place of, emotion and vulnerability, and not that they hate you. I mean, I've done this work for over 11 years, not once that I've heard an adolescent say, I hate my parent, and this is why. They say, I'm hurting because my parents said X, Y, and Z to me. I'm hurting because a friend has disappointed me. And, it's very, 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 very rare that a child would say, I hate my parent because they've done something positive for me. So I think it is very important that as parents, we also look at and pay attention to the way that we're parenting our children.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So I wanted to add a little comment to that, and then rebound it back to you. So you talked about parenting. There's two things that you talked about. First is that parents reaching out to the imam or some type of youth leader or spiritual guide, and with that being said, speaking out to the community, we don't have close to the level of expertise in professionally dealing with or identifying what the mental illness or what particular need a child may have. But we find ourselves, in spite of that, being at the first line responders, whether that be a default reaction of a parent that, oh, if something's wrong, let's take them to the imam, as if the imam's gonna wave a magic wand and they'll be fine, right? I wish that was the case. I would use that at my house. We grew up with a particular wand that you were referring to, whether it be eyes or there's a saying that I came across that I got such and such things growing up as a child. Now I suffer from a condition called respect for others. Okay, so again, the time that we grew up in, the era that we grew up in was a different era. The challenges that we faced are no way near the challenges that our children are facing, albeit a different set of challenges, but a very unique dynamic to that. So, I find myself in the position where a lot of parents or sometimes even the youth reaching out to us, and, what our guidelines are is to, immediately have them reach out to, the proper channel and the proper resource. But again, going back off the topic of parenting, one question that as parents, we like to keep an eye out on our children a lot, but it's not enough to keep our eye out on them, but it's also very important to keep our ears open. And, children, school-going children in that age and stage of their life, they are not spending most of their time, most of the quality kind of face time. I'm not talking about under the roof in the same address time, but they're spending most of their, quality FaceTime or exposure with an instructor, with a teacher, with other friends. So can you help our community kind of, explain to the parents, the importance of keeping our ears open and importance of keeping a relationship with their teachers, with the, mentors in other circles. We feel like, oh yeah, we're just going to drop them off at the masjid or at the rec center or at this, and that's it. They'll be fine. We are absolved of our duty as being dutiful parents. Just as God has told children not to say oof to parents, if an oof happens, it's a sign for a parent to, it's a wake-up call for a parent. Like, why is that happening? Where is that coming from? So I wanted some guidance as a parent as well, of 3 young crazy boys right now. Like how, what should we be looking out for? How should our relationship be with the other people who they look up to in their lives?
I love what you said about the oof piece, because I think that is really interpreted as, how dare you? you're not allowed to, versus I wonder what led to this, that he or she felt the need to say this, right? I think it's a very different way to view some rejection or some reaction from our child. Not the "how dare you," but I wonder what's going on that you're feeling this way. I think, just like you said, emphasizing the importance of staying connected to not just your child, but the circles of your child, like what circles your child is, whether that's their friends. There's lots of parents who don't even know their kids' friends. It's important to know your kids' friends. It's important to know the families they're hanging out with, what they're doing, not in a control sense, but to just know who you're with, where you're going, what you're doing. That's important. And showing some interest in that too, right? Again, meeting your children where they're at, their interests, being able to connect with them at that point. So yes, keeping in touch with that. Like if they're going to Sunday school, really engaging with their Sunday school teachers. If they're coming to the youth group, engaging with the youth director, showing some interest. What did you learn? Tell me, like being really engaged versus, I've done my job of check mark. This is done. I provide this to my child and I'm good to go, versus it's more engaging. And so really emphasizing the circles of your child's life are important. And those circles include teachers, they could include school counselors, they could include the youth directors, the masajid, the staff that they interact with, or their friends and their friends' families. And so just emphasizing those connections and being aware of them. And like I said, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and have conversations about this periodically versus just leaving it to wherever it is right now, where they're going, they're coming back, and that's it.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, Hannah, and Imam Bashir, that's your point is so. I think it's helpful to understand that the framework that we come from is very important. I'm thinking, I have a small child who's already exposed to how to use, an iPad better than my mom can, or her grandparent. And for them, they're able to pick up apps and do all kinds of stuff. And I'm only imagining 10 years from now how that processing is going to look like. And so when you, as a parent, give your child small answers, you're going to receive small answers back from them. So, things like, I told you so, or do it because I'm your parent, do it because I need respect. We don't do it in our cultures like this. Those things don't register with them. What they hear is, my parent's not listening to me and I'm not getting my needs met. And so I think it is very important to give your children explanations. And as Hannah is saying, that connectedness is very important. As you said, when you hear them saying something that may be hurtful to them, understanding is, why does that bother you? Or what is that making you feel like? Even those small things can be so important for a child or a young adult or an adolescent, for them to understand, okay, my parent cares. And parents often say, well, my child never listens to me. They never listen to anything I say. I guarantee you that child is listening to you. They probably listen to you better than they listen to their teachers or us or anybody. I mean, a child-parent relationship is naturally, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intended it, you're the biggest influencers in your child's life. But there is a way that we communicate with our children that's very, very effective. So if we talk to them in a downward manner or in a hierarchy, which our communities have been accustomed to, you're going to get that response back where they feel not heard, not validated. So it is important for you to explain your feelings, like, I'm doing this because I care about you. I'm doing this because I love you. One thing I'll share with you, Imam Bashir, that I often hear from especially the South Asian and Muslim clients that I see, is in our communities, we don't say I love you. It's, again, very seldom a word that they don't hear. But, they're inundated with all kinds of TV shows, whether it's a 30-minute episode or an hour episode where all the families are like, I love you, let's solve this problem. That's what they're accustomed to, a short direction, a short duration where things are solved within 30 minutes. There's no conflict. I love you, mom. I love you, dad. And things are fine. That's what they're registering. And then you're here at home, not listening to them, not validating them, not telling them you love you, I love you. And they're like, where's my connection with my child, with my parent? So it is very important that we also positively reinforce our child. So if they do a small thing like, they haven't done the dishes in a week, but hey, you did the dishes last night. Thank you. I guarantee you that child's going to start doing the dishes. You may have to ask a few more times, but the more positive reinforcement we give the human brain, the better. Inshallah. Thank you.
So, speaking about, as you mentioned, a very common culture, especially in the South Asian households, about the lack of saying "I love you," right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has stated in a hadith, like this was his instruction to his companions, that when you see a person, right, when you see someone who you love, let them know. And when we talk about love, it's not really in the kind of the lustful manner of love. We're talking about the genuine kind of relationship, one human with another, a family type of the I love you that we share in our households, right? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us that when you see someone, and whatever the reason it may be, they make you feel closer to God, let that person know that person, the word is I love you, but what it means is you have a place in my heart. And when you let someone know that you have a place in my heart, then that reciprocates. Okay, that the most contagious thing is what? A smile. Whether it be a smile, whether it be the simple greeting as assalamu alaikum, or whether it's letting someone know that they have a place in your heart, this has a ripple effect that will not only make that day, but probably that week, that month, or it may even turn a life around. And so one question that we have from our audience, from our online audience, is that this is something that happened close to home, and a lot of most parents are dealing with this with our children, right? And how are parents going to help their children, their youth who have experienced trauma due to this event? And before I hand over the mic, one thing I want to say to parents who are here, parents who are watching, it's not enough to throw your child in front of a laptop again to listen to, even albeit professionals giving advice. It's not enough to just throw them in front of a TV, throw them in front of a laptop, here, listen to this and deal with it. What you're hearing right now, if you are watching, you shouldn't be watching this alone. If you have family close by, you should be sitting down with an adult, with your guardian, with your family members who can help. That's what we're here for. You shouldn't be left to deal with this alone, and you shouldn't leave someone in your home to deal with it alone. This is something that you watch, you absorb, and then you have a conversation about it. So again, addressing this question, how are the parents going to help? How are they to help their youth and teens due to this event in particular? Because Allen has one high school, so this has had the shock waves are direct in many homes right now, and parents are not necessarily equipped with the talking points. So what should the talking points be? What should the discussion be?
Yeah, great question. There's lots of families right now who just don't know how to have this conversation because they just don't know. This is not something that we are prepared for. And so the most important thing is to be able to not create this white elephant that no one talks about. That's what we don't want to do. We want to certainly avoid that. Not talking about it is somehow going to make it go away, or we're just time will pass and nobody will talk about it anymore and it'll be okay. That's definitely not the way to go. We definitely want to have a conversation, an open conversation about what happened. And sometimes it takes you to initiate that conversation. But before even that, you as a parent need to process what's going on too. Before you sit with your kids, be able to process kind of, what can I expect my kid to ask me? How can I respond to that? And parents, you don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to say, I don't know right now. I don't know how to answer that right now. It is okay to not have all the answers. And so really kind of processing that with yourself, maybe with your partner, with other people in your home, with your family, processing that, and then kind of setting that up so that you can process that with your teen kid. But the conversation is important. We cannot not have this conversation. And saying something as simple as this is sad. I feel sad. You feel sad. This is hard to talk about, or this is hard to deal with. And there are some kids who might say, I actually don't want to talk about it. They're not ready. And giving them a little bit of that space. It's hard to talk about this. It's really difficult. And I'm here whenever you are ready to talk about this, giving them that space to be. There's some families who have kids right now who are in college and they're not with them. And it's very it's very scary for them. They're like, how do I help my kid who's far away? And I want them to get the support. And so they're encouraging them to access, campus counselors and friends and just maybe family that's in the city. But, just being able to keep in touch with your kids, being able to have this conversation, normalizing this conversation, and then getting to a point, of course, based on how that conversation goes, that we're here, if you need to access support, we're here to help you find that support. But conversation about this is extremely important.
Yeah, Hannah, I definitely agree with you. And I think one thing that we don't often do for ourselves or our children, because we get stuck in the loops of work and responsibilities and things to do. But, as human beings, I think often, as I'm sure Imam Bashir you can add to, or Mufti Naman you can add to, which is, we don't give ourselves the grace that we expect to give to other people. We want to be kind to other people. We want to do nice things for other people. But, often we don't give each other for ourselves, the same grace. And, our children, if they're hurting, this may be an opportunity for some parents to actually sit down and feel out if your child's ever had any thoughts of self-harm or anything of that nature, or in the past, or if they've gone through it. I mean, parenting is hard. Parenting is not an easy task at all. I mean, it's challenging. It can be overwhelming. It can mentally exhaust us. And, as a parent, I think there's a sense of a constant worry for your child's safety. And so I think uncomfortable conversations don't necessarily mean negative ones. They just mean that I love you enough to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. I'm willing and able to sit down with you and make sure you're going to be okay, despite might not being around you long term or as you're going into adulthood. But I care enough for you now and forever. So I think uncomfortable conversations in our community are especially hard. I'm sure the imams and mufti can attest to that. I definitely believe that uncomfortable conversations can, inshallah, lead us to a better path to change, inshallah, even. So we're not repeated or inundated with this kind of trauma, inshallah.
I have one question that we are getting from someone online is, what if in the process of telling our parents or sharing our problem with them, they say that we are being dramatic or overreacting? What should our response be, or what do we do to get it through to them? Again, this goes to the fact that, parents think some parents think this thing is, light. But how do they navigate themselves through a response from a parent who says, oh, you're overreacting and just being dramatic?
That's a hard one. Unfortunately, it happens quite a bit. And, again, I want to encourage everyone to seek out different adults, different avenues to help get this message to your parents. It's not the end all be all if mom and dad don't get it. We've got to reach out to other people that we can think of in the school setting, in the masjid setting, and mobilize and help, because there are advocates. You may not think there are, you may not see them, but there are several advocates around that if you were to just put your arm out, they will be there to hold you, to guide you, to help navigate this with your family. And so just knowing that my mom and dad don't get it, okay, now let's move to the next circle. Who else can help me? My teacher, my school counselor, my youth director, who else? My older sibling, who else can help me? And thinking beyond that immediate circle.
Yeah, I would definitely say it sounds like it's somebody that really is feeling overwhelmed. I mean, again, our emotions don't always come across as healthy. So as for parents, maybe that child's overreaction or being dramatic could indicate that they're actually scared. So I would say maybe sometimes even reframing that could be helpful, and reminding this person that, it's they're wanting to actually express their fear. It's they're wanting to get some help or validation that, am I going to be okay? I guess that what I hear from that comment, Imam Bashir, is this person's actually very scared and they want to know an answer, like we all do. And as Hina said a little bit ago, sometimes we're not able to provide that answer. So I would encourage that parent to be able to say, it's going to be okay. And I may not have an answer for you, as Hina said earlier, but inshallah, we should be able to find some hope. Calling your child dramatic, in all honesty, yes, sometimes developmentally, I think, there could be a period when adolescents express their emotions a little differently than we do. As I mentioned earlier, if the human brain's not developed until 25 and they're expecting a youth to act like a 20-plus-year-old, it's impossible. They're going to be a little bit dramatic in their feelings and expressions. And it's okay to let them know, you might be scared, but let's sit down and let's see if we can help you reframe. Or if you're watching too much of this news, let's go for a walk together. Let's talk about your feelings. Let's talk about what's on your mind. I'm scared too. And normalizing experiences can be helpful versus what that comes across as judgment or even devaluing their emotions.
I just want to add one quick thing to that. I think this is a time that we need to really, really pay attention to the words we use. The word dramatic is very insulting for somebody who's having a reaction to something, a very big, intense feeling to something. I don't like to ever use the term, someone is doing this for attention seeking. I don't call it attention seeking. It's connection seeking. They're seeking a connection. They're needing something from someone. So anytime we think, oh, this is attention seeking behavior, dramatic behavior, this is really your child letting you know I need something. It may be in the most annoying way possible. It might be very upsetting, but they're letting you know they need something. And so really, again, looking past the behavior, I can't emphasize this, look past the behavior to understand what's underlying this. And that way we'll be able to change the way we approach it, change the words we use, because it's a very judgy word if you think about it. You're being so dramatic. It's such a common word, that we use often, but it's very insulting for someone who's having an experience. And so just being really cautious about the words we use and always reminding yourself behaviors are purposeful, and this is connection seeking behavior, not attention seeking. And even if we think of it as attention, it's for connection.
So from what I gathered as an answer to our last question is that if the parents are not your end all be all solution, to reaching out. If they don't understand, reach out to a guidance counselor. You just reach your hand out and someone will grab it. Now, that is my transition into the next question, right? From amongst the people that you can reach out, your circle of friends is also that group. The question we have is, as youth, how can we, let me just read the question word for word. Talk a little bit about how the youth can help each other. Having a friend that you suspect is suicidal or struggling, how do we as teens help? Okay, so we're talking about teens who are also going through, God knows, whatever, challenges that they are facing and they are trying to address, but now they have someone in their circle reaching out for help. How does someone who possibly may need help themselves, maybe a little less than another person, how do they be helpful in this type of situation?
It's a hard. I hesitate only because that's a hard place to be, right? You're a teenager developmentally. There's another teenager who's seeking help, and how do we help our classmates, our friends, navigate through this? And what comes to mind is really helping them figure out that those circles that your friend might have. Okay, so mom and dad don't get it. Let's helping them brainstorm other ways, other people that they can help. They can reach out for help. And so it's because sometimes, again, the person reaching out might feel like I don't have options. I'm stuck. And helping them kind of feel unstuck, like, okay, let's brainstorm some options. And I think, that could be a helpful way to get a friend to kind of move in a certain direction. It's hard when we have two people like that, right? Who feel the same way and they both feel stuck. That makes it way harder. But again, the message is that if you have a friend who's feeling this way, you notice somebody, an acquaintance feeling this way, really helping them find other avenues in their circles and in their connections.
Yeah, thanks, Hina. I feel a little stuck with that one as well. And I think the only real big thing to help youth navigating and helping other youth could be that trusting an adult that they also entrust. So somebody mashallah, like yourselves, Imam Bashir or Mufti Naman, like to be able to have a trusted adult that they can come to and say, I have a friend that's going through something. Could you guide me on what I should do? Having somebody in your circle is always important. I think especially in this pandemic, I think one thing that we're challenged by is people that are natural socially isolated are probably more socially isolated. So if you're not giving them a hand, like you said, they probably don't have any hand. So one hand can lead to so many different changes for them. So if somebody comes to you, I definitely think that we need to be able to say and respond and be response oriented instead of dismissing or minimizing. So even if you have one trusted adult or somebody that's a little bit older that you can go to. As I mentioned, there's hotlines. You can connect your friend or another youth to those that have trained professionals that can help guide you and navigate you into different systems. And sometimes, yes, those could be in short-term releases and relieves, but in the long term, you could help that person change their mind, especially if they've had thoughts of self-harm or anything that they're not happy about in their lives. So I think right now we have to be able to give even small hands.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, has said that Allahu fi auni al-abdi ma kan al-abdu fi auni akhi. That God is at the aid and support of a person, so as long as that person is in the aid and help and support of another being, whether it be a brother or a sister. So for those of the youth who are watching here, even if you feel like you may not be equipped to address a situation or handle a situation, a friend in need is a friend indeed, right? And if you feel that someone is screaming silently to you and reaching out to you, be the one who can offer some type of help or help direct them on a path where they can get help. Would we not like it? Would we not want that if we find ourselves at a dead end for someone else to help us out? So this is, this is what our deen and this is what our religion teaches us, that we are stewards of humanity. We are not here just for our own living and for our own livelihood, right? So this is something that we have to understand. The concept of friendship has been so it has such a big definition, such a different definition, and such a diluted definition, where you could claim hundreds of people to be your friends on a virtual platform and a field, but in reality they're nowhere even close to what the definition of an acquaintance may be. Okay, so it's very important, and this is something our religion teaches us, to keep good company around you. Keeping good company around you will have positive effects. Will it save you from every challenge and every test? No, it may not. But will it help you? It definitely will. So if you are watching and you know someone, or you hear of someone, or someone reaches out to you, please do respond. Grab that hand, take them to somewhere where, to someone you trust. Let a third person know of that situation, because you don't know when in life you may be in a situation and you may need directions. Nowadays everyone has GPS, so the concept of asking for directions is, no one carries maps, no one stops at a gas station to ask the attendant, hey, where is this store at? So there's that aspect of a social we were socially distant before COVID in certain aspects of our life, so to try to develop that bond and that human relationship, and that's something that our religion teaches us. A final question that I have, and there's many other questions, folks, and I just wanted to let you all know that inshallah on Friday, tomorrow, we are having the funeral for the family. On Friday evening, from Maghrib till Isha, which translates from 8 till about 9. We are also going to be welcoming Sister Abida and Sister Hina, along with some other spiritual guides from the greater DFW area, to have a community, an Allen town hall, a community town hall meeting, where the purpose of that is so that we can all kind of get together and collectively, share a space in order to grieve and in order to have, further, continue this conversation. It it's really sad that these type of issues get brought to light as a reaction to something so tragic. This is something that has always been going on, is going on, and is a challenge that we will continue, that we will need to address. As long as human beings are human beings. Okay, so the purpose of that is to raise the, to kind of further facilitate the conversation and the communication, and to keep that awareness alive, that this is something, just as we take care of our physical well-being, just as we go to a doctor for an annual checkup, even though we may feel healthy, we don't know what's going inside our bodies. That's why we seek help. That's why we regularly visit. The same goes for the soul, the same goes for the mind. Okay, if we understand it in these arenas, we should be able to easily understand it in this arena, in this field. Sister Hina and Sister Abida, both of you are part of an organization called MAPS. I would like you to share the organization, and what your function is. And what the MAPS organization is all about. And then we have one question that I guess you can kind of sandwich into that, a question that we is not just from one individual, but overall. What are the are there any resources for therapists in the DFW area, and are there any free resources for therapists in the DFW area? So shed some light for us about the MAPS organization and other resources that may be available for our audience, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, we definitely want to leave the community with resources here. So I guess I can, like you said, I'll sandwich that with MAPS itself, because MAPS is a great resource that hopefully can reach many people. The MAP stands for Muslim Association for Psychological Services. And so there's Abida, myself, and Sehba Ali. The three of us kind of came together one day and decided that we need to create an organization that brings together Muslim therapists, because we started to notice in the community how people didn't have access or didn't know where to find Muslim therapists. And so they were just kind of lost. They didn't know what to do. Either they wouldn't seek help, or they would seek help and it wouldn't work for them. And so we decided that this would be a great time to come together and start this. And we started out just the three of us. We didn't know any other therapists. And today, mashallah, how many do we have? About 30? 30. A little over 30 Muslim therapists in the DFW area. And now we're looking to expand into other cities and create different chapters. And so, alhamdulillah, it's been a great journey. This was like our passion project that we did alongside many other roles that we play, but this was such an important cause. And we were so grateful for the response we've been getting and the work that we've been able to do, and how many families that we've been able to impact. And especially during this time, being able to mobilize support for religious leaders in the DFW area, community advocates on Monday. I mean, it was incredible how we were able to pull through all this and still be able to do an incredible training for all the advocates, leaders, and mental health professionals in the DFW area, or beyond DFW, right? Like, we had people from other cities as well. But one thing that I will say, and we're going to try to get this maybe on our website pretty quickly, we do have a directory on our website that lists the DFW therapists in the DFW area. We are putting together another list, though, of counselors that are going to provide free counseling for a few sessions over the next couple of weeks, because we know people are hurting, people are needing support as soon as possible. So we want to put out the names, contact information of therapists who have availability right now, who are willing to provide free counseling during this time of crisis. And so we'll definitely put that out there pretty soon. And then I'll pass it over to Abida, so add some more.
Sure. Jazakallah. Yes, as Hina mentioned, we started MAPS 4 years ago. In fact, mashallah, Imam Bashir, I want to thank you for that, because we started our inception here at the Allen Mosque, because we are part of the community. Both Hina and I live here, and Imam Bashir, you were gracious enough to host us, and mashallah, from that platform, we were able to, gravitate and inshallah grow. Alhamdulillah, continue to grow. I will say that, as Hina is saying, we are putting together a list. Hopefully, inshallah, it'll be live and up to date in the next, hopefully, inshallah, by tonight, if not by tomorrow. But we want to be able to provide that safe space for people to come and contact, perhaps even have some group dialogues like these and beyond virtually, to be able to provide services for the community. Because having done this work for so long in our community, it's vital that we pay attention to people's mental health. With the work that we do and the work that we're able to help so many families, there are still people that are hurting and don't ask for help. So what we want to be able to do is create that safe space where people can seek out help. Our youth, our adults, our families, our couples, because we all hurt in different ways. You know, we bring different experiences to different relationships. And so we want to make sure that we are able to have the tools to be able to go through life and not suffer. So inshallah ta'ala, I think in some ways we should be able to have some tools and guidance we'll continue to provide. And inshallah, we'll continue to provide, especially for our community that's really hurting, and we're all with you, inshallah. And inshallah, tomorrow night we are going to have and do a healing circle for our community, for the MAPS. As a MAPS community, we'll have about 10 therapists that should lead it. We have a psychiatrist. We have a couple of psychiatrists. We have Dr. Rania Awad, who's been working in Stanford to do research on Muslim mental health. And inshallah, she's helping us lead this project to be able to work through this tragedy for our community, inshallah. So Jazakallah so much again, Imam Bashir and Mufti Naman for hosting us.
So folks here and online, this brings our program to a conclusion. Just keep in mind that on Friday evening, along with the many, please take advantage of the many different platforms of awareness that are being carried out online or on site at different sites. Please do take advantage of all that, and try to attend as many as you feel the need to, and also join us inshallah on Friday evening. Sheikh Umar Suleiman, Mufti Kamani, Ustad Abdurrahman Murphy, along with Sisters Abida, Sister Hina, Brother Mahbub. We are going to be having a town hall meeting to further expand the healing process of our community. And before y'all head out, youth, parents, moms, dads, everyone out there, keep your ears open, keep your hearts open, and keep your minds open. And know that we are one body, and as an ummah, we need to see each other. We need to see each other struggle. We need to hear each other struggle. And we need to feel each other struggle. And it's, we've heard this phrase so much in the last year. We are in it together. We are in it together. We are in it together. Everyone has their own custom tailored struggle and test in life. Someone else's struggle, you may not be able to relate to someone else's struggle, but it is a struggle nonetheless. Okay, you may feel like your struggle is a really tough struggle and someone else's doesn't equal yours. It is a struggle nonetheless. And as stewards of humanity, the responsibility and the obligation that God has put us in this world, not just to make a living, but to make a life. Okay, that is the rent that we pay to each other for being here on planet Earth. So I thank both of you for joining us in our community online and our different platforms. Thank you, Mufti Naman, for organizing this. And thank you, everyone in the audience, for being here. We understand that there are still, COVID issues and COVID sensitivities, but Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everyone. And just stay safe, stay blessed, and we love you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.